Welcome to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross.
I'm Will.
And today we're going to do one of our segments of short review of the phases in the new 8th edition 40k rules. Today we're going to be covering the shooting phase, the charge, fight and morale phase. So with that we're going to sort of begin with the shooting phase, and this phase along with the fight phase are probably the two most important phases where you cause the most casualties.
I would say so, yeah, absolutely.
So let's begin with shooting phase. Do you want to do a quick rundown of how the phases sort of pan out?
So in this edition, it's very similar to the last edition. Obviously you choose your unit, as long as it's not within 1 inch of an enemy unit, or falling back or advancing unless it otherwise states, you can shoot. Once you choose your unit to shoot, you choose a target. Now, depending on the weapons, again, unless stated otherwise, you can shoot all the weapons that they carry. So if it's a tank that has sponsons and a cannon, you can fire it all, and you can fire it at different targets. Although you do have to declare before you fire them which targets they're going to hit, but you can shoot everything.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one. After you choose your targets, you choose the weapon itself.
Yep.
So you choose the weapon, and then you basically roll what you need for it, so what the weapon profile, etc. is. So a couple of things on that one we need to discuss that the major changes is we've got to talk about ballistic skill.
Yes.
For one thing.
It's pretty much changed entirely, I would say.
Yeah. So in the previous edition they had a chart which was if you've got ballistic skill 1, you hit very poorly. If you've got ballistic skill 10, you do amazingly.
Yes.
And it can be anything like ballistic skill 1 you hit in 6s, ballistic skill 10 you hit in 2s with reroll to 2. Okay. But now it's just a simplified version of you hit on 2+ or 3+. That is your ballistic skill. One of the simplest changes probably Games Workshop made in this edition, but it works.
It really does, and especially for newer players that are still trying to learn, they don't really have to flick through the rulebook to find the ballistic skill and what will hit. It's literally on the profile. If it says 4+, you need to roll a 4+ to shoot with that weapon and hit. It's simple. Couldn't ask for a simpler rule.
So that makes it a lot easier. So one other thing I think we touched on there, we're talking about choosing to shoot, but choose targets.
Yeah.
Now this is important that now basically if you've got multiple weapons, which we'll go into, basically if you've got a whole bunch of weapons on either a vehicle or a model, you can fire all of them, bar 1 or 2 stipulations. I think one of them is pistols. You can only choose your pistol or your main weapons, and grenades as well, but you can basically fire all of them. For tanks that's amazing, and you can basically choose different targets. This is very handy for infantry especially, because let's give an example of Tactical Marine Squad or a Chaos Space Marine Squad, where you can stick in a heavy, like either a melted gun or a heavy weapon inside that unit. If you need to take other people, they're almost taxes for it.
Yeah.
So you're like, I have a melted gun, I want to go after that tank, but then I can't fire my 4 bolt guns because traditionally they can't hurt tanks.
Yeah.
They can now. But now you can say to yourself, oh well, I've got a melted gun, I'm going to fire at that tank, but the bolt guns are going to go after the troops on the other side of the battle. Generally it makes units feel more useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where basically there's not just sort of guys who are taxes towards again a weapon.
Yeah.
Very good for infantry. I know for yourself as an Astro Militant player though, being able to shoot for different targets with a vehicle is very good.
So helpful. And most of the bat reps I've noticed a lot of comments just saying, why do you take like bolter sponsons on your tanks? Now before that I used to take that just to mitigate weapon destroyed, so it might hit one of my bolters instead of my main weapon, but more often than not they would just snap fire all the time, and you're right, they were pretty useless except for that mitigating factor. Now I can shoot my battle cannon one way and those bolters the other way, so infantry can be shredded, vehicles can be hammered. So useful. Yeah. So useful. In terms of what Ross said, tactical marines being able to shoot their heavy bolter one way or their melted gun one way and their bolt guns the other way. The great thing about it now, in terms of the shooting phase, the wounding phase, everything gets hurt by everything. There's not a single thing in this game that can't hurt something potentially.
Yep.
Bolt guns can take on a tank, fair enough. not going to do an awful lot against it, but they can at least try and strip it off a wound. Everything's useful now.
Yep. So next part is we're talking about choose ranged weapons. So you obviously then choose your weapons and where they're going to go. At that point I'm feeling we're going to talk a wee bit about the different types of weapons you can get. And what I mean by that is like heavy weapons, assault weapons, pistols. You're going to have to help me out here.
So you've got heavy weapons, assault weapons, pistols, rapid fire weapons. You've obviously got your grenades and stuff like that as well.
So we'll cover heavy weapons first. Heavy weapons have a simple rule that basically if you stay still, you fire at full ballistic skill.
Yep.
If you move, you -1 to your hit rolls.
Which is crucial. So good.
Crucial. This also affects most vehicles unless they've got
a mitigating rule. Leman Russ tanks, when they move, normally they would have to be -1, but they've got a rule where they can still fire their main weapon. Like their battle cannon at full ballistic. Fair enough, you'll still fire the heavy bolters at -1, but again, that's mitigating.
So you've got to think carefully about when you are going to fire any heavy weapons. But generally, it also means that instead of in previous edition, when you moved, you had snap fire.
Yep.
You're actually hitting better when you think about it.
Much better, yeah.
So that's not bad. Rapid fire weapons are more or less the same. If you get within half your range, you can basically double up the amount of shots you do.
Yeah.
Now, where that is actually key though is weapons that used to be twin linked.
Yeah.
They are now like rapid fire 2. So if your single model gets in rapid fire range, it's 4 shots. 10-man squads in rapid fire can pelt 40 shots.
Yeah.
I've had in a game I've had that happen to me. It's not fun to be on the receiving end of that. It's quite scary.
Yeah, in terms of you mentioning twin link there, having all those extra shots as opposed to re-rolls now, if it's twin linked heavy bolter, normally that would just be 3 shots and you get to re-roll.
Yeah.
Now it's just 6 shots. Or twin linked heavy bolter, just be 6 shots. That's much better in my opinion, because although yes, you're going to get to re-roll and you can still potentially maybe get 3, you could potentially get 6 now. You might roll all hits and all wins. It's much better. I prefer.
The other one as well is we've got assault weapons.
Yep.
Now how they work is that basically you can do an advanced move, which is more or less a run move from the previous edition, where if you did that you still can't shoot, you can't charge. However, if you've got an assault weapon, you can actually still shoot, but you -1 to hit roll.
It's good at getting stuff like, I believe a melter gun is an assault weapon.
I think so. I'm not going to say that off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it is.
Even then, like a flamer, now they're assault weapons. Being able to just run forward with that, because that's got such a short range anyway. Now you're getting these kind of weapons close enough to do the damage, so it can be a nasty shock when a unit that you thought was only going to move 6 rolls like an extra d6 and gets that extra movement, and all of a sudden they're on top of you.
Yeah, gets them in there, and that's really handy.
Exactly.
And then obviously I think we talked about pistols earlier on, where I said usually you can fire all your weapons on a model, but if you use pistols you can only use them. I think that's the same more or less with grenades as well.
Worth mentioning, pistols however, you get to fire in the assault phase.
Well, this is true, you can fire with the pistols and even if you're in combat, which is really cool.
Really good, really good.
I've still yet to do that. I think I did it once in a practice game.
It's good for those units that have, say, chain swords with that extra attack for that, and then all of a sudden I'm going to shoot you as well. It's just like, it's just a lot of damage.
Extra damage. So I think that covers most of the shooting phase in terms of how the main changes between 7th and 8th.
Probably in terms of shooting, the only other thing, again, this is probably more to do with like weapon profiles, but everything has a damage value now, and like an armor piercing value now. So instead of it just weapons being AP 2, you're not getting an armor save. You're just reducing the armor save.
Because that's in the lean things, I think we might cover in another video, just basically the new profile for weapons, because they have changed quite extensively in terms of how a weapon does work. So we're next going to move on to the charge phase. This is basically the phase right before the fight phase, where basically you declare units that you want to engage in physical combat with other models. So how it works is choose a unit to charge with, got to be within 12 inches, and then you choose the target, you go, I'm going to charge them. You get an overwatch with the opponent gets to overwatch if they choose to, and then you make the charge move, which you roll 2 dice, and if you are within range, you basically get to charge. That was that breakdown. So you choose a unit to charge with. It's pretty self-explanatory. You choose your unit. Say, I'm going to do that. I'm going to charge them. Choose your target. You go, going for you. Overwatch, however,
is a lot better in my opinion. Again, like one of the main things for me, for one, you get to fire all your weapons, providing you're not, like as we discussed, you have to choose a pistol if it's a pistol, blah blah blah. But tanks,
yes,
vehicles, or they get to fire Overwatch, or as far as I'm aware, I can't see anything in the rule book that says otherwise. Please correct me if I am wrong. However, vehicles getting to fire Overwatch with all their weapons is just disgusting, and I love it.
Yeah, I've already felt the pain of that one, so that was quite interesting. The other advantage in Overwatch as well, and this is quite key, is that you're not limited to the amount of times you do Overwatch. Usually you can only Overwatch the first unit that actually attempts to charge you. Now it's a case of, if I for instance went to assault, I don't know, a Lehman Russ battle tank, and I charged it and I said, well, this unit's going first, you'd go, cool, I'm going to Overwatch it. And then you annihilate the unit, you roll all the 6s in the world, and then you just destroy the unit. Like, cool, you're not charging me anymore. I go, well, I have another target, he's going to charge you. You go, I'm going to Overwatch again, Ross. And then your Lehman Ross does some damage, and I'm like, cool, I've got 2 guys that are going to charge you, and I fail the charge, and I'm like, well, I've got a 3rd unit that's going to, I'm going to Overwatch again. And it's just that, although Overwatch is not the most reliable because it is 6s,
it's certainly giving you that help.
Yes, so very, very good the change to Overwatch. I agree with it. If a unit does fail to get there and then you turn your attention somewhere else, sure, I can accept it. It's still 6s to hit, so I'm like, not too bored by it, but fair enough.
Nice little bonus.
Nice little bonus. And then obviously you make your charge move and you engage, and that's where we next come into the fight phase. So do you want to explain the fight phase? There's sort of 3, the main steps to it.
I think just in terms of the fight phase, you'll know I don't really do combat that often, and when I do, it always goes disastrously. So I am not 100% with the fight phase. I do know, obviously, you choose your unit to fight. If you charge, you get to hit first, provided there's no other combats taking place. So you could do essentially a mass-wide attack. You get to hit first. You've got your usual pile-in move, and I believe you choose your targets of what you're going to hit in the combat as well.
So how it now sort of works is that, how can I describe it? You have all the units in combat, and if we went by a scenario where we had our whole army is all engaged in combat and it was my turn, I get to choose which unit strikes first of mine. So I'd go, right, cool, I want my Plague Marines to attack your, I don't know, Cadian shock troops or whatever they're called, standard troops for Astra Militarum. I choose my Plague Marines, and then you could choose another unit in another fight, and you go, I choose that unit, and we go back and forwards. Now the key difference though is, if for instance in the charge phase I assaulted you with all my units, I would get to actually do all those units first before you did any of them.
Which is filthy. Which
can be a huge difference for some armies. So if I had, say, 5 units that did assault 5 of your units, I would get to strike with all of them first before you even got to strike back.
I think the way Games Workshop have sort of done it in terms of these rules is, they'll reward you if you get like your mass charge. If you got a full assault army and you manage to get them all across the field and you do get all your charges off, that's like your reward. You get to attack first with absolutely everything, whether you've got a big massive power fist, whatever, you get to attack first. That's your bonus, your reward. After that, they've essentially done away with initiative altogether. So it's not a case of, I'm faster than you, I'm going to constantly keep hitting you first. It's making it fair, as Ross said. You choose a fight, then your opponent gets to choose a fight, then to go first. It balances it out and it makes it fair. So if you're playing Eldar, like a close combat, they're always going to just get to hit you first. Or if you're playing Orcs, if you're an Orc player, you always hit last.
Yeah, that was back in 7th edition, and it was a bit tricky in that one. So just to put my thoughts on the fight phase, I know you've not had much of a chance to really experience the fight phase yet.
Not yet, no.
I've had a few test games now where I've got to try it. and one of them, which was one I didn't film, it was just like a taster for myself to try it out. I assaulted with Chaos Space Marines against Necron Warrior squads. Now, one of the key changes noticed is that you no longer get +1 attack for charging.
Yeah.
That was sort of, now you say the reward is now you get to strike beforehand. Fair enough. Okay. However, not getting that extra attack. Okay. The other thing as well is that it's very actually rare to get an extra attack for, like for instance, like bolt pistol and chain swords. Chain sword can give you an extra attack, but you no longer get that extra attack from a pistol and a close combat weapon, which you used to. Now, why this is important is that most infantry now will have 1 attack unless they are specialists in close combat. So when I charged as Chaos Space Marine against Necrons, I caused like 1 casualty, they caused 1 casualty back, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to if the units are not specialists in close combat, it becomes very much a grind of either who somehow takes the most damage or who falls back first, who retreats from it.
I think with that, again, I think what they try to do is in terms of if you've got line infantry, their main thing is going to be their gun. You don't want to get those guys in combat. It's almost given every unit a specific role now.
Yep.
So, you don't want your line infantry to get in fight. If line infantry goes up against line infantry, it is going to be that grind, whereas if they just stand and shoot at each other, that'll probably go a lot faster. Whereas if line infantry did go up against, say, a close combat specialist unit, that grind is going to happen a lot faster. Or if a close combat focused unit goes up another close combat, again, they're just going to absolutely tear chunks out of each other.
Yeah.
I know what you mean about not getting the extra attack, but like with chainsword and bolt pistol, but if you think about it this way, you'll get your extra attack from the chainsword, but your pistol you still get to fire.
That's true.
So you still technically do get that extra attack, fair enough, not in the fight phase.
Yeah.
But you still do get to shoot, which is still good, and as far as I'm aware, yeah, you still get that extra attack, so
that's not bad. However, I have noticed that if you are specialist in close combat, you'll be devastating. You will be devastating. We should stress that anything, hitting in the wounding in close combat is different as well.
Yep.
So where it used to be as well is it used to be weapon skill comparison. Now I quite liked it because it was obviously a measure of talent more than anything else.
And you memorised the chart.
I did memorise the chart, so I could recall it quite easily. But it's the fact that your reward for having a higher weapon skill than your opponent, you hit easier, he hit more difficult, and now it's just a solid 2 hit. If for instance just his weapon skill 2, you always hit in 2s. It doesn't matter if your opponent is hitting on 2s re-rolling and he's so much better than you.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, you're hitting on 2s.
Yeah, even on the profiles, it doesn't just say like weapon skill 3, weapon skill or ballistic skill. It's like it'll say 3+. That is exactly what you need to hit. So if it says 2+, you need to roll a 2.
Yeah. So very similar to the skill in that one. I did like the talent one. I'm gonna have to get used to it. I thought if you got talent one, you should hit better. I'll live with it, but fair enough. It keeps it simple, keeps it going.
It does feel a bit faster now that it's there, I do have to admit, because I am one of these people that will literally go along the top and down the chart and find where, even though I'll know it in my head, I'll still need confirmation of it just because I'm like that. So the fact that those days are gone, I quite like that. Yeah. I know you don't.
Well,
I'll
get used to it. I have no choice. So you obviously have specialised units in close combat as well, and I feel I've not had a chance to really see any of them yet. I know Richards is working on several units at the moment, and we'll see how they turn out. But let's use, for instance, an example of Khorne Berserkers, who are specialists in close combat. And how do they do it? I believe they get 2 attacks apiece. I would need to check.
I
believe so. But they get to attack twice in a turn, or at least twice in the combat phase. You can pile in and fight. Ouch! Like, I think
Horrible.
If you took a 10-man squad and they're getting 2 attacks apiece, that's at least 40 attacks for 10-man squads. I think they're hitting on 3s and they've got a whole bunch of other stuff. Generally makes them very good. I think that's the same for Orc Boys as well.
Orc Boys, they don't get that extra pile in. They get bonuses as far as I'm aware for how big their units are. I believe that's the way it is. But anyway, in terms of that, again, we'll get into orcs, but orcs get bonuses for hordes now. But again, that's another thing.
Okay, it was just I thought they had an advantage in close combat.
They're better now in terms of, again, if you get that mass charge, you'll get to hit first. Orcs were at rubbish initiative in the last edition. Initiative's gone now. So now orcs are actually useful in terms of they'll get to attack, they'll get to hit. With orcs, they do have force multipliers with in terms of characters that can affect their combat. So orcs in this edition, in terms of the fight phase, in combat phase, are definitely going to see a lot more of them because they're going to own it.
So there's going to be, so if you are an assault army like them, I think the assault's going to be absolutely key for you to really get there and cause the damage.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited to see one. I know we've now unleashed orcs, so we can see the trailer for them. I'm excited to see how you play them as a close combat specialist. Bring it on, Will. Bring it on.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
So that is a bit of a review of the close combat. As I said, a bit of a grind. If you've got a specialist unit, it's going to be very interesting. I'm excited to see it. So the last phase we're going to talk about is the morale phase. Now this essentially replaces leadership checks. To most degree. Now how it worked in 7th edition is that basically if you suffered casualties as such, usually 25% shooting was the main reason for you to take a leadership check. You took leadership, if you failed it, you would retreat. Then afterwards it got a bit messy because then at the start of your turn you take an leadership check, you might fall back, you might regroup. If you regroup you can't shoot, you can only move a certain amount. Space Marines also had their own rules. And if you're under 25%, you have to roll a double 1. And generally, to me, it felt a bit messy sometimes in addition. You saw units moving in different places because they were running away.
It did, yeah. It was messy, and if you've ever experienced this where you've received X amount of wounds, even if it wasn't a lot, but it forced morale checks, and you somehow roll badly across the board and all your forces are running back, the next turn is done for you. You're not going to get to do an awful lot. You can regroup, but you're not going to get to do anything really. You've given up a turn essentially. So
now how it works is basically you've got leadership value still, but basically at the end of the player turn, you look at how many casualties the unit has suffered. You take that number off your leadership. So say you suffered 5 casualties and you had a leadership of 7, you'd end up with the score is 2. If you can roll below or even to that, nothing happens or it's all fine. If you score above it, the difference, so say you scored a 5, which is obviously a difference of 2, you would suffer 2 casualties. Now these aren't 2 wounds, they're 2 casualties. So if this happens on a big squad with 3 wounds apiece, and they suffer or they fail by 2, that could be 6 wounds essentially gone, which is quite tough. I think it makes the whole morale leadership a lot cleaner. It means things just are still where they need to be, so they're still in combat or they're still shooting, etc.
They're still useful. They've still got a place. If you lose 2 Terminators have got what, 2 wounds apiece.
Yep.
Fair enough. If you fail, one, by 1, your morale check, a full Terminator will go. That's 2 wounds. He's off. But again, they're not useless now. They can keep moving forward, they can keep shooting, at normal ballistic skill, providing there's no mitigating modifiers or circumstances, but everything's useful now, everything stays useful and in the game, which keeps it flowing, and then you don't have some players. I don't really care if I lose or lose big chunks of my army. I think that's part of the fun, but you will get some people that might act a bit salty when they can't get to roll dice. So
when they're just constantly falling back, especially when you're at the double 1 stage and you're just like, well, might as well just remove them. This way they at least stay on and they can still fight and they can still shoot.
It keeps people playing, which is what the game's about. So.
Which is pretty good. It just keeps you in the action in that way. So it's simplified. It's literally in the rules, and I've got the wee core book in front of me. It's like 2 paragraphs to describe it. Pretty efficient. Pretty good. In terms of
the rule books, if you haven't got the rule books, what we've got the rule book. We've also got the little booklet thing that you get. What was the star set?
The Dark Imperium.
The Dark Imperium, and it's essentially that's the extent of the core rules. That's it.
Cool. with that, that's the review really of sort of the beginning of the shooting, the assault, the charge assault, and the morale phase. There's a couple other things we're probably going to look at in some other videos, but obviously they are the most important phases because they actually cause quite a significant amount of the damage that you will see in a game.
I know Richard will love that. He loves getting into combat, so
yeah, so
his phase.
Love it. So hope you enjoyed. Hopefully we're a bit more, information. Hopefully you learned something from that.
Please, if you haven't, then please let us know. We'll try again.
Well, if you got anything wrong, let us know. That would be even more important. Make sure there's any errors we've got. Let us know. We'll create them all in our batch reports, and would certainly be very thankful for it. But yeah, as usual, please comment, share, like, and subscribe. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you again on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.